They say success changes people. But what no one warns you about is how it reveals people, especially the ones closest to you. I'm Ava, a 29-year-old tech founder who went from sleeping on a futon in a roach-infested apartment to selling my startup for $20 million in cash and equity. That should have been the happiest moment of my life. And for a while it was, until the very people who were supposed to be proud of me, my mother and my sister, turned that joy into betrayal I never saw coming. But let me rewind just a bit. I built a time tracking and productivity app for remote teams. Simple idea, powerful execution. Over 4 years, I coded through breakups, breakdowns, and burnout. I pitched to hundreds of VCs who told me I was too young, too emotional, too unpolished. Eventually, I stopped pitching and started growing on my own. When big corporations began buying licenses, I knew I was sitting on a goldmine. And when a competitor made me a buyout offer, $20 million, half in cash, half in stock, I didn't blink. I sold. Quietly. Carefully. No press. No LinkedIn announcement. No podcast interview. I just took my win and went home. And that's where my mistake began. See, I never had a real family growing up. It was always just me, my single mom Patricia, and my older sister Carla. My mom was the classic survivalist, resourceful, skeptical, and always 2 steps ahead of whatever disaster she believed was coming. She never believed in dreams, only bills. And she reminded me every chance she got that she gave up her dreams to raise me. So when I made my first million, I gave her $50,000. She rolled her eyes. That's after taxes, right? When I sold my company, I didn't tell her right away. I knew what she'd say. Eventually, I visited home and broke the news. She blinked twice. 20 million? I nodded. Carla, my sister, looked like she'd just seen God. Oh my God, Ava, you're rich. I laughed nervously. I guess. That night, we had dinner together for the first time in years. And for the first time in my life, my mother poured me a glass of wine and called me baby again. She even smiled. Should have known it was a red flag. 3 days later, I visited a private bank to begin transferring the funds. But I hit a wall. Due to paperwork delays and international clearances on the equity portion of the deal, I could only access half of the cash for the time being, $10 million. My lawyers told me to wait. I didn't listen. I withdrew the full $10 million in physical cash. Why? Because I was paranoid. I'd heard too many horror stories about frozen accounts and digital heists. I wanted something real, something I could see. But I didn't have a vault, and my condo wasn't secure. So, like a fool, I asked my mother if I could store the money temporarily in her walk-in floor safe, one she'd used to store documents and jewelry for years. She smirked when I asked, "You trust me with $10 million?" I laughed. "It's just for a week." She didn't blink. "Of course, baby. I'm proud of you." And for the first time in a long time, I believed her. The money was neatly packed into 10 metallic briefcases, each holding $1 million in carefully banded stacks. We hauled them into her safe late that evening, locked the steel door, and I took a deep breath. Everything felt right. We celebrated with wine. Mom made her signature lasagna. Carla gushed about taking a trip to Italy, just to touch the real Colosseum. And I felt like I had finally made it. Finally earned their respect. I went to bed with a full stomach and a fuller heart. I woke up to a nightmare. The house was silent. Too silent. I stepped into the hallway. Mom's bedroom door, open. Bed empty. Carla's room, also empty. Drawers pulled. Clothes gone. No note. No text. No goodbye. My chest tightened. I sprinted to the closet, opened the safe. Empty. All 10 briefcases gone. For 10 full seconds, I couldn't breathe. My brain refused to process it. Had they been robbed? Had something happened? I checked the security cameras we'd installed 2 years ago. They were unplugged. Cold. Calculated. Clean. It didn't take a genius to piece it together. They didn't just take the money. They planned it. They manipulated me, smiled in my face, toasted with wine, and waited until I slept to vanish. And yet, as I sat on the edge of my bed, gripping my phone with shaking hands, I began to smile. Not a sarcastic smile. Not an unhinged one. A knowing smile. Because while they were boarding a first-class flight somewhere across the world, celebrating their million-dollar heist, they didn't know what I had placed inside those briefcases. Just before loading them into the safe, I swapped the actual money for indistinguishable counterfeit bills. Perfect copies. Same bands. Same weight. But completely worthless.
Why?
Because I don't trust anyone with that kind of temptation. Not even blood. I kept the real cash in a second safe, one hidden in my own condo, in a closet wall behind my shoe rack, masked as part of the foundation. I'd had it custom installed 6 months ago. So while they were sipping champagne in what they thought was a victory, I was already one step ahead. But I wasn't going to alert them. Not yet. Because this wasn't just about money anymore. This was personal. Let them enjoy their short-lived fantasy. Let them feel invincible. They didn't just try to rob me. They tried to erase me. And I was going to make sure their fall from glory was slow, painful, and unforgettable. The first 24 hours after they disappeared were quiet. No ransom notes. No dramatic "we had to do this" messages. No apologies. Just absence. Cold, calculated absence. But I wasn't panicking, not like they expected me to. They'd taken the bait. And now I had time to track every step of their delusional escape. I started by contacting a private investigator named Theo Langston, a former fraud agent turned freelance ghost hunter for the rich and betrayed. He answered on the first ring. How much did they take? 10 million in counterfeits, I replied. There was a pause. Then a chuckle. You're not the victim. You're the avenger. I like that. Send me what you've got. Within 2 hours, Theo had already pulled security footage from nearby gas stations, airport checkpoints, and ride-hailing apps linked to their phones. Carla had booked a ride to LAX at 2:47 a.m. Destination: a private flight hangar. Mom followed minutes later in a separate vehicle. Both boarded a Gulfstream bound for Cancun, Mexico.
Classic.
The predictable escape-the-system move. Except they didn't realize the system was already watching them. I watched Theo's footage on my phone as I sipped iced coffee in my high-rise condo, the very one they'd mocked for being too modern and soulless. Carla looked smug in her black shades and designer sweats. Mom wore one of my old Burberry trench coats, clearly stolen from the guest closet. They each dragged 2 of the 10 briefcases behind them. I nearly choked on my coffee. They really brought the fakes with them. Like kids running away with Monopoly money, Theo quipped. They hadn't even checked the contents. Their greed had blinded them. By day 3, they were settled in a luxury resort on the eastern coast of Cancun, complete with infinity pools, butler service, and beachfront balconies. I watched it all via Theo's drone footage and discreet hotel surveillance. They were spending.
Fast.
Private dinners. Spa treatments. Jewelry stores. Designer boutiques. But it didn't take long for reality to start cracking. On day 5, they attempted their first real cash exchange at a local currency house. Carla handed over one of the crisp stacks from the fake bundles. The attendant examined it.
Paused.
Then smiled. Un memento. He disappeared into the back. 2 minutes later, the federal police walked in. Not because they discovered the bills were fake, they were good fakes. But because the serial numbers matched a flagged counterfeit network that had been on Interpol's radar for years. I had made sure of that. The irony? I'd registered the counterfeits through a dummy account to bait future con artists. My lawyers never thought I'd actually use it. Now, my mother and sister were standing in front of 2 uniformed officers, blinking in confusion. Theo sent me a screenshot. Should we have them arrested now? I shook my head. Not yet. Let them squirm. The police let them go after failing to prove intent. But the fear? It had begun to spread. That night, Carla booked a flight to Barcelona, Spain. And Mom? She followed, desperate to outrun something they didn't even understand yet. Meanwhile, back home, I reached out to my attorney and quietly froze all shared family assets, the ones they didn't think I knew about. A small property under my mother's name. A joint savings account I'd opened for Carla when she said she was trying to get on her feet. A safety deposit box in Nevada. All of it locked. Then I hired a financial firm to track every dollar they spent using the cards I knew they couldn't resist. Carla had stolen my second phone. I'd left it out on purpose. It was linked to every location they entered passwords into. Barcelona lasted all of 4 days. They switched hotels 3 times. Mom started panicking, sending emails from burner accounts to old family contacts. Just taking a break from everything. We're good. Ava is good. Just needed some sun. They were sweating. Theo updated me daily with photos. I saw them in a street market, arguing with a vendor. I saw Mom slapping Carla on the arm. I saw Carla sobbing into her overpriced cocktail. Each image was another thread in a net pulling tighter around them. I should have felt rage. But all I felt was satisfaction. Not because they were struggling, but because they finally realized they had stolen nothing. That the power they thought they held was a performance. On day 12, they fled to Singapore. Desperation was now painting their every move. They'd gone from first-class lounges to economy middle seats. From 5-star resorts to budget hostels. From $400 dinners to supermarket sandwiches. The money wasn't just running out, it had never existed. And finally, I made my move. Using my legal team, I issued a formal inheritance fraud claim, triggering a subpoena across all U.S.-connected accounts my mother had ever touched. Carla's tax ID was flagged. Their U.S. passports were now subject to automatic alerts upon attempted re-entry. I wasn't trying to get them arrested. I was letting the world tell them, "You don't belong anywhere anymore." A week later, I received a voice memo. It was Mom. "Ava, baby. I made a mistake. We made a mistake. I didn't want to hurt you. I thought you owed us. I gave you everything when you were little. I worked 2 jobs. I sacrificed. Carla, she just followed me. I told her it'd be okay. We didn't know." I replayed it once, then deleted it. Because no, she didn't just make a mistake. She orchestrated a betrayal. And the price of betrayal is not access to an apology. The price is watching everything you thought you stole dissolve in your hands. By day 20, they were in Dubai, pretending everything was fine. Posting fake smiles. Recycling old designer outfits. Getting fewer likes. Fewer comments. Fewer options. Meanwhile, I launched a new fund. One that invested in solo women founders with no family support. I called it Counterproof. And in every pitch I gave, I told my story. Not for pity, but as proof that your bloodline doesn't define your success. You do. By week 4, my mother and sister had gone from globe-trotting bandits to 2 anxious women clinging to the scraps of a dream they never actually owned. They were in Dubai, trying to maintain the illusion. Photos of Carla by rooftop pools, captions like, "Success looks good on us." Mom posing with tea and gold-trimmed desserts, writing, "Sometimes you gotta disappear to find peace." They didn't know the world was watching. Or rather, my world. Because by now, I had triggered a chain reaction they couldn't escape. While they were feeding their fantasy, I had partnered with 3 international fraud watchdog organizations. I submitted detailed reports of suspicious movement, including their exact flight logs, hotel stays, and counterfeit currency involvement. But again, I wasn't pushing for jail. That would have been too quick. I wanted them to live inside the panic. To wake up every day not knowing whether a knock at the door meant breakfast or an arrest warrant. Meanwhile, I planted seeds. I commissioned a story leak through a trusted journalist at a rising business magazine. The article was titled, "When Founders Get Burned, How Ava Sharp Outsmarted Her Own Blood." It didn't mention my name directly, just a rising tech founder who safeguarded her startup fortune with counterintelligence after suspecting betrayal from her own family. But the dots were there. Within 48 hours, the article had gone viral. Tech Twitter was ablaze. LinkedIn was buzzing. Investors were DMing me, applauding my foresight. And Carla? She posted a screenshot of the article with a laughing emoji. LMAO, imagine thinking I'd ever steal fake money. Skull people really be wild. It was the first public acknowledgement of the situation. And it told me one thing loud and clear. They were panicking. Because the only people who feel the need to deny a story without being named are the guilty ones. The trap had worked. And now it was time to tighten it. I flew to London, where an international business conference was taking place. One of the keynote panels? How to spot and prevent familial financial exploitation. Guess who was headlining it?
Me.
The panel went viral. Clips of me saying things like, "Sometimes your biggest enemy isn't a competitor, it's someone who once sang you lullabies."
And
Revenge doesn't always wear armor. Sometimes it wears patience and a smile. The online buzz grew hotter. People began searching, piecing things together. Comments appeared under Carla's posts. Is this the sister from that Ava Sharp piece? Didn't y'all go to Mexico right after her company got sold? Girl, you better be careful. Karma's tracking flights now. She stopped posting for 5 days. Then Mom deactivated her account completely. And in the digital silence, I made my boldest move yet. I hosted a live webinar titled, How to Spot a Thief in Your Bloodline. Over 120,000 people tuned in. I didn't mention names, but I told the story beginning to end. From the startup sale to the fake money switch, to the betrayal, to the trail across continents. People ate it up. Women messaged me from across the globe. I've been used by family too. I needed this strength. You just helped me take my power back. One woman wrote, I was about to lend my brother $200,000. After watching your story, I said no. Thank you for saving my future. That message hit different because I realized this wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about liberation. From guilt. From generational cycles. From the pressure to stay silent just because someone shares your DNA. But just when I thought it couldn't get any more satisfying, karma came dressed in diamonds. Literally. A video surfaced from a high-end Dubai boutique. It showed Carla trying to purchase a $27,000 necklace with a stack of the fake money. The cashier hesitated, then scanned the notes under UV light. The bills glowed wrong. Security was called. Carla began shouting. My mother appeared and tried to argue, but it was too late. The footage ended with the two of them being escorted outside. No arrests. Just humiliation.
But the internet did the rest.
The clip hit TikTok like wildfire. Someone captioned it. Fake heiresses of Dubai caught slipping. Within a day, both their names were trending. Influencers were stitching the video. Memes appeared. When you steal $10 million, but forget to check the bills. I sat in my penthouse, legs crossed, sipping wine, watching them burn. But I wasn't done. I sent them each an anonymous envelope. Inside, a single page. Front side, a photo of the real money in my hidden safe. Each case open, crisp bills stacked. Back side, a note in all caps. Next time, steal smarter. No signature. No threat. Just truth. A few days later, Carla posted a tweet. Y'all can have your money. I'm focusing on healing. It got 3 likes and 1 retweet. My mother? Disappeared completely. No trace. Just the whisper of a woman who once thought she could outrun the daughter she underestimated. Meanwhile, my company continued to grow. Counterproof funded 5 more startups. I was featured in Forbes under Women Redefining Wealth. And I finally bought the thing I swore I never would. A safe. But not for money. For keepsakes. Reminders. Proof that the best revenge isn't loud, it's legacy. People think the most painful part of betrayal is the moment it happens. It's not. It's the silence that follows. The kind that settles in your bones long after the drama ends. After the articles stopped trending and the clips stopped going viral. After the texts from well-meaning acquaintances slowed. After the awards, interviews, and keynote invitations. That's when it hit me. I'd won the war, but I'd lost my mother. And not because she was gone physically, but because she had never really been with me emotionally, not in any of the ways that mattered. She didn't celebrate my first client. She didn't ask how my app worked, or what I planned to do with the company. She didn't hold my hand when I stayed up nights worrying about investor rejection. She only leaned in when the money came. And when she saw an opportunity to take it, she didn't hesitate. I didn't cry for the loss of the money. I cried for the proof. Proof that I was alone all along. It started creeping into small moments, like walking into my condo one afternoon after a product team meeting and instinctively reaching for my phone to call someone and say, "Guess what happened?" And realizing I didn't have a someone. Sure, I had friends, supporters, loyal colleagues, but not family. Not anymore. That night, I stood in front of the mirror and asked myself a brutal question. If they apologized sincerely, would I ever take them back? The answer came quickly. No. Not because I was bitter, but because I finally understood something I had ignored for too long. Blood does not excuse betrayal. Intentions don't erase impact. And love, real love, doesn't cash itself in when the stakes get high. I started therapy. Quietly. Privately. At first, I went in ready to talk about revenge. About justice. About how brilliantly I orchestrated their downfall. But my therapist, Layla, asked something else entirely. What part of you still grieves the child that wanted to be chosen? That question wrecked me, because I had spent so many years proving I didn't need validation, when all I really wanted was someone to clap for me unconditionally. Someone who didn't need a price tag attached to their pride. Week after week, I unspooled decades of wounds. The way my mom belittled my ideas. The way Carla copied my homework but mocked my nerd energy. The constant undercurrent of, we're a family, but don't you dare outgrow us. And I realized something else. Their betrayal wasn't sudden. It was trained. They groomed me to believe that loyalty meant silence. That love was transactional. That I owed them for simply giving me life. They didn't just steal 10 empty briefcases. They stole a narrative I had clung to, that I had a family who would never hurt me. But truth has a way of washing all illusions away. So I leaned into it. I stopped checking their socials. Stopped tracking their movements. Theo, my investigator, still sent me the occasional update, but I told him to stop unless it was urgent. I didn't need to know anymore. Let them drown in the mess they made. I had things to build. I turned my focus fully on Counterproof. We funded our 10th founder, an Indigenous woman creating biodegradable packaging from seaweed. I flew to Nova Scotia to see her prototype and cried when she hugged me and said, "You're the first investor who didn't ask me to shrink." We launched a podcast. I named it Betrayal Proof and hosted stories of women who rose after the people closest to them tried to crush them. And through each conversation, I healed more. One woman shared how her husband stole her manuscript and published it under his name. Another said her best friend stole her entire online business idea and beat her to market. Each story made me feel less alone. We weren't victims. We were survivors with blueprints. But not everyone was silent. One day, an anonymous email landed in my inbox. Subject: "Just hear me out." It was from Carla. "Ava, I know you blocked everything and everyone, and honestly, you're right too. What we did, it was unforgivable. But I need you to know something. Mom planned it. All of it. She convinced me you wouldn't miss it. That you'd understand. She said it was a test to see if you really valued family or just money. But when I realized it was fake, and you knew, something in me cracked.
I realized you had been watching the whole time.
And I knew we lost you for good. I deserve that. I just wanted you to know I'm not proud. I hope you're okay."
See.
I stared at the screen for a long time. I didn't respond. Not out of anger, but because some stories don't deserve sequels. They deserve a full stop. And I had already written mine. Instead of replying, I printed the email and placed it in my safe, next to a photo of me as a little girl, holding a fake plastic laptop at age 6. A reminder of the child who dreamed, despite everything. Then I closed the safe, stood tall, and walked out of the room. There was still a world to change. Still women to fund. Still dreams to defend. And I was just getting started. It started with a knock at my door. Not metaphorical. A literal knock.
Soft. Precise.
Almost polite. I opened the door to find a courier in a navy blazer, holding a slim envelope and a body cam. He handed it to me and said with a neutral tone, From the U.S. Department of Treasury. Please confirm receipt.
I signed. He left.
Inside the envelope was a formal notice. My mother and sister were under investigation for interstate financial fraud. I sat down slowly on the edge of the couch, rereading it. The irony wasn't lost on me. I never filed criminal charges. I never demanded police action. I had every right to, but I chose strategy over spectacle. Yet here it was, justice knocking anyway. And not because I pushed for it, but because of what they did next. Apparently, after Dubai, they tried to use the fake cash again. This time in Switzerland. A banking institution flagged the bills, ran a serial trace, and found they matched several items from the International Counterfeit Tracking System. A system I had helped fund. Yes, the same one I had anonymously embedded the briefcases into months ago. Their trail was now public. Their greed documented. I wasn't elated. I wasn't even vengeful. I was ready for whatever happened next. That evening, I received a call from a restricted number. Against my better judgment, I picked up. A familiar voice, older, wearier, spoke.
Ava.
Silence. Then she continued. I heard about the investigation. It wasn't supposed to go like this. I just wanted to give Carla a head start in life. You had enough. I clenched my jaw. Mom, I said quietly, you didn't steal lunch money. You orchestrated a transcontinental scam, and then disappeared. She scoffed. I'm your mother. I carried you, nursed you. I deserve. I hung up. There wasn't anything left to say. That night, I wrote in my journal something I hadn't done in months. Justice doesn't always arrive in sirens. Sometimes it tiptoes in, patient and precise, just like you. 2 weeks later, I was invited to speak at the Global Financial Ethics Conference in Berlin. A lawyer who worked with Interpol approached me after my panel. He didn't say much, just handed me a card. When you're ready to talk officially, I'll be here. I pocketed it. Was I ready? To testify? To stand in court and face them? Not yet. Because this wasn't just about the money. It was about the weight of memory. The grief of a daughter who still remembered her mother's scent, her warmth, her lullabies. But memories don't override reality. And reality was a woman, and her eldest daughter tried to rob me blind and flee with my future in a leather briefcase. So I asked myself a harder question. What does closure really look like?
I didn't know yet.
But I knew what it didn't look like. It didn't look like rage. It didn't look like social media wins. It didn't even look like courtrooms. It looked like peace. And for me, peace meant truth. So I gave one final interview.
Live.
National television. Prime time. I didn't name them. I didn't slander. I told the story exactly as it was. How a tech founder safeguarded her startup proceeds. How betrayal came wrapped in a familiar face, and how a counterintelligence setup accidentally became a global lesson in generational trust trauma. Viewers flooded in with comments. Some cheered. Some wept. Others wrote long letters about cousins, siblings, even parents who drained their trust accounts or stole inheritances. I wasn't alone, and that made the wound ache less. A week later, a package arrived. No return address. Inside, one of the original fake briefcases. Inside the briefcase, every counterfeit bill burned halfway through, ashes packed into individual Ziplocs. On top, a handwritten note. You win. No signature. But I knew the handwriting. It was Carla. I held the note to my chest and whispered something I didn't expect to say. I forgive you, but I won't forget you. Forgiveness wasn't for them, it was for me. Because carrying rage every day was like wearing wet clothes in winter. Eventually, it freezes you. I was tired of being cold. So, I forgave. And I moved on. Meanwhile, Counterproof had expanded into 11 countries. We hosted our first Women in Betrayal Recovery Summit. Over 2,000 women flew in. We cried together.
Built together.
Rose together. At the closing ceremony, I walked on stage in a white jumpsuit. No jewelry, just one band on my finger engraved with the words, not broken, built. The crowd stood, not for me, for themselves, For every woman who was told her story was too messy to matter. For every founder who was asked to choose between family and freedom. For every daughter who grew up being told loyalty meant silence. We were not silent anymore. The last update I got about Mom came from Theo. She was living in a small town in Morocco, using a fake name.
No job.
No real connections. Just rumors and whispers from neighbors about the American woman with secrets. Carla was reportedly in Bali, selling handmade bracelets under a different alias. They weren't in jail, but they weren't free either. They were living in the consequences of their choices. And me? I was free. Truly free. It's strange how the most devastating things in life don't just wound you, they redefine you. I used to think my story would be about tech, about apps, about funding and IPOs and interviews with business magazines. But now, when people say my name, it's not about what I built. It's about what I survived. And I'm okay with that. Because the truth is, I didn't build my legacy in boardrooms or bank accounts. I built it in the ashes of betrayal. And somehow, that's stronger than anything I could have imagined. It's been nearly a year since the day I found my mother's safe empty. Since the morning I discovered my family was gone, my trust stolen, and 10 fake briefcases missing. In the time since, I've grown, quietly and ferociously. Counterproof now supports 67 women-led companies across 14 countries. Each one founded by someone who was underestimated, dismissed, or betrayed by the people closest to her. Some came from abusive marriages. Others escaped manipulative siblings or toxic parents. All of them had a fire behind their eyes that I recognized instantly. They were me. I was them. That's what betrayal does when you rise through it. It makes you magnetic to others who've walked through fire barefoot and still come out unburned. We launched a mentorship program last fall. I named it Legacy by Design. And every founder I guide now begins their journey with one question. Who told you your pain disqualified you from greatness? Because that's the lie they want us to believe. That if you come from brokenness, you're too messy to lead. That if your family turned on you, you must be the problem. That survival and success are mutually exclusive. They're not. I'm living proof. As for my mother and sister, the world hasn't heard from them since the bracelet boutique in Bali and the tiny town in Morocco. Occasionally, someone sends me a sighting, a blurry photo, a street name, a whisper of a new fake identity. I don't investigate anymore. I don't care what they're doing. Because I'm not running from them. I'm running toward something. My future. My peace. My people. Last month, I gave the opening keynote at the World Women in Finance Summit in Singapore. I wore a charcoal suit, no jewelry, no flash, just my presence and my voice. Halfway through my talk, I paused and said, my mother taught me 2 lessons. First, don't trust everyone who says, I love you. Second, sometimes, betrayal is the greatest clarity you'll ever receive. She gave me both. I thank her for the clarity. The room went still. Then they stood. Applause that felt like thunder in my chest. I wasn't just being seen. I was being understood. I went home that night and did something I hadn't done in a long time. I opened the original 10 briefcases. Yes, I still had them. The fakes, the burnt ashes Carla sent back, even the silent metal locks, untouched since the beginning. I took them all and had them encased in glass. A permanent installation in the lobby of Counterproof HQ. Above the glass reads a plaque. What they stole was empty. What they left behind built an empire. Every founder who walks into that building knows what it means. Every woman who passes that display remembers her own version of it. And every investor who asks about it, they get the full story. Because I'm not hiding it. I'm owning it. A week ago, I received a hand-addressed letter. No name. Just an address from Thailand. Inside was a single photo. A little girl, about 7, standing barefoot in front of a tiny clay hut. Her hands were stained with paint. She was smiling wide. No words on the back. Just a scribbled note in pen. She's my daughter. I'm raising her better. See. I stared at it for a long time. Did I cry?
No.
But I felt something soften in my chest. Something I thought had frozen forever. Because while I'll never forget what Carla did, I believe she might be trying to rewrite her chapter. And if her daughter grows up believing love isn't transactional, if she's taught to celebrate, not compete, then maybe, just maybe, this whole thing wasn't a curse. Maybe it was a cycle broken. That night, I sat on my rooftop and looked out over the skyline. My city, my life, my peace. I whispered to myself. They tried to bury me, but they didn't realize I was a seed. And when I bloomed, I didn't just grow flowers. I grew forests.